Exactly.
Is there any uncertainty with this in terms of your life? Because it's a transition.
Oh yes. Because now remember, Lawrence, this was almost 21 years since I had been
employed
in a formal setting. So I'm like, will I be able to be in office at 8 every day and stick there until 5? Because this other work I've been doing, sometimes the office begins at 1 because you start with a client somewhere, and it was varied. And then I was thinking, would I still be able to write memos and and attend meetings and chair them? Yes, but what surprised me, when I sat in the chair, it's like things just started flowing, and then what I found out also was that there's now a shift, a positive shift. It's not at the level where we would want to be, but it is in the direction where we expect it, where we wanted the organization to go. Yesterday, I met somebody and said, "No, your area has changed. I tried to offer money to one of your staff, and the staff refused the money."
Wow.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, I am in this.
Well, that's the voice of none other than James Abola, the Assistant Commissioner Staff Compliance at the Uganda Revenue Authority. He is supporting URA to define, develop and promote a culture of integrity, compliance and ethics. And him and URA are guided by the URA Comprehensive Integrity Strategy. Previously, James was the team leader at Akamai Global, a firm offering financial literacy and management consulting services. He was also an MIS consultant with Information Discovery and Solution Limited, Ideas. Also, he was a regional supervisor and branch marketing officer at the Cooperative Bank Limited. He has a master's in finance from the University of Leicester, a postgraduate diploma in computer science at Makerere University, and a bachelor's of statistics at Makerere University. James has, of course, gone through several transitions in this life of his, and that's why we had a discussion, a conversation to specifically bring those things to life. This month we have been talking, and we're still talking about life and career transitions, and it is instructive for us to listen to this conversation. I am sure you're gonna be blessed. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whatever place it is you have tuned on to the Life Signatures podcast. It is May 2023, and in this month we have been discussing about transitions, life and career transitions. We are marked with transitions from the time that we are born all the way to the time we're going to transition from this world. to the next world. In other words, transitions are a key component of our lives. Some of those transitions are forced and some of them are not forced. We institute them ourselves. Today in the podcast, I had to make a small journey and meet up with a long-lost friend. His name is James Abola. He is an author. James, do you still write books, by the way?
I believe so, because I can still hold a pen, I can still hit the keyboard, and there are ideas in the mind. Yeah.
So, James, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Lawrence. Good to see you after many months.
Many years, actually.
Yes.
It's been years. It was 2 years before COVID that we lost touch.
Yeah,
and then
true.
COVID, and then all that stuff. But it's good to meet up with you, James. I want us to talk about your transitions in life. And before that, I love books.
Yes.
Tell the listeners your first book. What was about it? I mean, what topic was it? Why did you write that book?
Well, I think the title really brings what the book is about. The title is Make Sense of Your Money. And I think for many people, there are quite a lot of holes as far as making sense of money is concerned. Some people seem not to get a hold of money. The money seems to always be slipping away. And others get so bothered by the money they have that basically they end up destroying their life. Yes, and then we have this situation where education was promoted as a way of getting out of poverty and into wealth. Yes, but then you find that somebody has invested a lot of time, the family has invested a lot of money, and the person actually has done well as far as education is concerned.
Yeah.
But then money seems to be more like a mirage. It's always ahead of you, but you never get
there. You're always reaching out, but it moves.
Yes.
When you get there, it has moved.
Yeah. So one time I had gone out to facilitate a retreat for a corporate organization, and on our way back, they started talking about one of the people in the organization and how money had been more like a mirage to this guy. And as they kept talking, I had been wanting to write for a while, but that day, that conversation gave me the character. So in the book, I talk of a man called Moses Otto, and how really money made life so difficult for him, for his family. Yes, and then then I bring out principles that people need to get so that they can make sense of their money, as it were. Yes.
Okay. So make sense of money, that becomes your first book.
Yes, please.
But James, before that, what is it that necessitated you to zero in on that topic of finances?
Yes.
Because there are very many other topics that you could cover.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if your name is mentioned in Uganda, it's always synonymous to issues related to finance.
Yes.
Personal finance at that.
Yes.
So what made you to start talking about money?
I think it was my personal money management ignorance. Yes, Lawrence, when I completed university, my first job was with a commercial bank, and that taught me a lot about finance, but finance from the business, from the organizational perspective. Now, when that job ended, unfortunately, the bank was closed down, and as it is with bank closures, the staff are the last to know that the bank is going to be closed. So I went to work one morning, and at about 4 o'clock, the bank was closed. So I became jobless. And
instantly.
I had 20,000 shillings in my pocket. And because we expected to be paid maybe in about 3 or so days, so I was like, this 20,000 will push me. Little did I know that was going to be my retirement package. Yeah, so then on reflection, I was like, how comes I was giving very good advice to clients, how they can manage their businesses, how they can handle cash flow, how they need to arrange financing, so that the source of the financing and the activity they are financing match, and so many other things. How comes that I was able to give such advice and it was helpful to clients, and yet I was not able to advise myself? That I didn't have any source of income, I didn't have any savings, I just only had the grace of God.
And 20k.
And 20k. So now I got introduced later. Now after the closure of the bank, I went and studied more finance. I got a Master of Science in finance, but even then I was not aware of personal financial management.
Right.
Yes, so it was just a chance thing. My wife landed on some newspaper article, and when she read the article, she realized that the things that were described in that article, and the article was about what a financial planner can do for you.
Right.
And she was like, no, but James can do this. So she carried that article home. When I read it, I was like, yes,
I can do this.
I can do this.
Yeah.
So that opened my mind to a whole new world of personal financial planning. And then I realized that was a huge gap in the Ugandan landscape. That really there were no personal financial planners. And but then a financial planner has to be licensed.
Yes.
And there was even no licensing
body.
Yeah,
in the country.
In the country. So then the approach I took was like, no, let me offer financial education. I don't need a license for that.
Yeah.
To educate people, to sensitize people, and that is how I got in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you formed Akamai Global.
Exactly.
Okay. How long were you in Akamai Global? I mean, did you quit? Did you get another job before Akamai Global? What happened? What was the transition there? Okay,
so before Akamai Global, after the bank, I joined with a brother and a cousin, and we formed a consultancy firm that was handling research and IT. Now the thing was that about a year before the bank closed, I felt strongly that I needed to do further studies. So I didn't, and I wanted to do maybe something like an MBA or something like that. But then I thought, okay, before I get to that, I need to reawaken my brain. So I enrolled for a postgraduate diploma in computer science at Makerere University. Because I thought that yes, that challenge would help my brains to
reboot or something.
To reboot, but also the computer skills would help me with my studies. But now the bank closed when I was about 2 months
to
finishing.
Okay.
Yes. So, and now I just took that on and started offering computer consultancies. But then it was not something I particularly liked
a lot.
Yes. So I was doing pretty well, doing programming, databases, and also designing local area networks for clients. But then I just didn't like it.
It wasn't your thing.
Yes. So when my wife then came with this article, I was like, yes, I think this
speaks to me more than local area networks.
Exactly. Yes. So then that is how then I get into financial literacy, and I really loved it. I still do, and it is something that I did just more for the value that it created in people. You know, when I meet people, the other day I met a lady and she said, my life was transformed when I attended your classes. You know, so I went on with that. Now come 2020.
Before we can even go there,
yes,
I want you to camp there for a minute.
Yes, please.
Because you said something quite critical. When it comes to IT and so on, you had the brains.
Yes.
As in you aced it. It wasn't a struggle for you in terms of skills.
Yep.
You could easily deploy those things. But there's this thing about it that didn't connect.
Yeah.
Do you see that in our lives a lot, where we, for lack of a better word, we are stuck in something we can do, but we don't like it. But just because it's paying, we stick in it. Do you see that in your conversations with people? Do you see that common denominator there?
Yes, it is. I think it is quite common, especially in the Ugandan context, the way that people acquire education. Oftentimes, it is just because that is the opportunity. You went to that school and those are the options it offered, or this is the government-sponsored course. It's not really what you want. Yes, and then also there is normally that pressure of you need to finish your primary schooling within 7 years. You need to finish your secondary within 6 years. Finish university within 3 years. And at times, people have not really quite figured out the career path that they want, or even in some cases that path has not yet been defined by them. Yes. For instance, now you have people who are managing social media accounts, and perhaps 7 years ago,
that thing wasn't there.
That thing wasn't there. Yes. So I think there's that aspect, but also depending on what one wants in life. Sometimes if what you want maybe is to earn a lot of money, then it might be that you may do that thing which earns money, but it might not be necessarily what you like. So
someone's motivation speaks into it.
Very true.
Okay. You have kids.
Yes, please.
Those kids who are past teenage years, and those ones who are also teenagers. How are you approaching their transitions, given this system that we are talking about, the education system? Let's not call it education. Let's mainly call it societal setup, right? Of the 7 years, 6 years, 3 years, we are defining life in those terms. Are you approaching with your kids, raising them up to face these transitions in life? Are you approaching it in any different way?
Well, remember, I am part of the society.
Yes.
So, I think life is much more tidy. You know, when you know that I have to pay primary school fees for 7 years and it is done, you know, secondary for 6 years, it is done after 3 years, whatever they finish their university and they are on their own. Yes, so that happens. But then I think what one of the kids is, both kids are have talents, but then one has expressed interest in developing the talent. Yes, in fact, he's talented both in sports and music, but he's not. And in my view, it would be like, you know, the music it's on the surface, but he seems to really just want to do it as a hobby. Yes, but then he puts in quite a lot of effort in the sports.
Yeah,
and he believes that sports is going to be the way forward for him. And me, I have all fears.
And academically, is he performing well?
Yeah, he does. But then it's not like, I would be like, if you could put in effort, just the way you do
sports
in sports, you know. So we keep having that conversation.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, really, is that whichever way, there will be uncertainty until somebody has made that transition. Yes, but so I support him with thinking through. Say, okay, do all these things, but don't forget your books, because when
keep an open mind.
When you've made your money, you probably need to know how to count it. So
yeah.
Yes.
So the idea there, the key word that you've said that I want to hang on is the word support.
Yes.
Right. Instead of shutting that avenue down of sports or even music, you say is books 100%, and then the kid becomes frustrated and so on. But you're making all avenues open for him, so that at least the foundation is there. When the moments of making decisions come, he has enough capacity to make the necessary decisions.
Very true.
So Akamai Global, you set it up when did you set it up? Which year was this?
This was 90, not 90, but 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
And you ran it for how many years?
2007 up to really 2020.
So 2007 to 2020, those are 13 years.
Yes.
Right. So 13 years you are known as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Right? You're doing your own thing. I remember I think your wife was involved in it.
Very true.
I met her several times along the lines of Akamai Global. The first time I met her was actually in 2010. Long ago, even before I met you. Working with a man called Coach Phil.
Yes.
And he was at that moment in time giving corporate training to many organizations in different topics. And when I had a passion to do it, he sent me to Joy to explore the idea of incorporating personal finances in our modules. And so I met and sat down with Joy and we had a discussion. So you are known as an entrepreneur for these 13 years.
Yes.
Like I said earlier on, when someone mentioned the name James Abola, personal financial management comes to mind. In fact, there are 2 books, isn't it?
Yes.
There's another one,
Money and Marriage.
Money and Marriage. Can we talk about that for a minute? What inspired that?
Well, my wife and I used to give financial counseling to couples that were preparing to get married, but then we realized that of course the counseling session could be 2 hours, 3 hours, but it was way too short to cover such an important topic. And then we wouldn't have local materials that we could refer the people to and say, you can use this as a reference. So we really put together what we thought the people needed to know in that book, but also wrote it in such a way that people who are still single, even before you identify your partner, there's value you would get by reading that book, because truth be told, you rather start your financial preparations earlier,
right,
rather than at the time when all that is in your mind is how your wedding reception should look like, what kind of limo you are going to be driven in, and maybe that would be some of the financial mistakes that you need to avoid. But if you're getting the counseling 2 months to your wedding, you probably have already booked and paid. And so, so that is how we wrote the book, and say let us make it available to help people through the various stages up to even now when you're married and you're raising your kids. There are nuggets there that people can still get here.
So as Akamai Global, how are you conducting your work? You had workshops, seminars. Were they for individuals? Were they for corporate organizations? Were they for everyone? I mean, what kind? How did you set it up?
Yeah, so really, it was a mixed because we had first of all different age groups. We started working with adults, but then later many of the adults were like, but we wish that our kids would know. So we developed packages for children, starting from those, like about the P7 group. Basically, because we are using the holidays, so we're like, okay, let us do the P7 VAC, the Senior 4 VAC, and Senior 6 VAC, and then anybody who falls in between there will either push you back to the, if you're maybe in S1, then you're thinking your age is still more like the P7, if you're in S3, probably we put you with the Senior 4 like that, yes. So we were doing that, but then also it was open to, sometimes somebody just needs an individual, a personal engagement, yes. And then many organizations started calling upon us because they found especially that their staff would take salary loans. Some organizations had like circles within, and so they found staff were getting heavily indebted, and it was ending up becoming frustrating. They are not focusing on work and the like. So many organizations also called us to do training for their staff so that they can appreciate how to manage, especially navigating issues of indebtedness, issues of expense management, and also what are the investment opportunities that somebody who is doing an 8 to 5 can engage in.
Okay. It sounds like it's a full-time, busy schedule and so on, and you are enjoying yourself as compared to what the local area network and computers.
Yes.
You are really having fun at this.
Yeah.
Now, I go to my Facebook some years back, and I see James Abola has posted about transitioning from being an entrepreneur to being full-time employed by the government. That's a transition, James.
Yes.
Have you seen anyone else doing that? Is it common?
No.
That's the question I'm asking.
It's not common because I didn't really have anybody I could refer to and say, okay, so how did you do it? Why did you do it? Yes. Yeah.
So for you, what happened? I mean, moving from, you've set up your own business. Normally, when we are setting up our businesses, we want them to be long-lasting.
Yeah.
And we want them, to become corporations, in fact, open branches in Africa. And I mean, I'm sure you had all that stuff going on in your mind.
Yes.
But then a transition comes and you leave the work and now you are being employed. Take us through the back scenes. What was going on? How did the transition happen? I mean, why did you leave? Yeah.
Lawrence will probably need like 3 or 4 sessions. So let me see how I can boil it down to a few minutes. But a couple of things. One, I really did not want to leave doing my own stuff and get employed. 2, I have never wanted to be employed by a government entity. And the reason is that I felt that there's just way too much corruption in government. And I hate corruption. So I would rather, in fact, even in my consultancies, I steered clear
from government entities.
Because I just didn't want to be in a situation where somebody is asking for a kickback. I just hate it. You know, you've not done anything, you've not added value, and you're seated there and you want to reap where you have not sown. So I didn't want it. So my thinking then later on is that first of all, I'm a Christian. And I think this was more designed or orchestrated by God. So a couple of things. One was that while I was in Akamai, one of, I would say, my competitors was Enterprise Uganda. Yes, but then myself and Charles Ochichi and some of the people in Enterprise Uganda, we had such a cordial relationship. You know, so it was not this thing
competing,
of
fighting,
you know, sharp elbows, and the like. So 2019, Enterprise Uganda had certain activities and they needed business coaches. So they reached out to me and they asked if I could give just a bit of my time, you know, maybe 6 hours a week or so to support this client. So I'm like, why not? So I give that. And then towards the end of the year 2019, they had some project with Ministry of Agriculture helping farmers to create and execute business plans. So they asked, you know, could you support, you know, there's a team member lacking for the Acholi group. And since you know, you speak Acholi and whatever, could you? So I'm like, yeah, you know, how long? They said about 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, that's no big deal. So I do. Then we finish, and I continue with my 6 hours coaching because they had quite many people, and perhaps they were getting good feedback about what I was doing.
Work,
yes. So then they say, now this other thing with Ministry of Agriculture, you know, phase 1 went well. Now phase 2 is much bigger. Could you help us and lead the team for Lao region? Yes. So and again, because of, you know, language and what yes, and of course I think they felt like they could work with me. So I say, okay, fine. And I thought that after that, then our little cooperation really would come to an end, because I would really have supported my competitor, as it were. So, but I think all that was kind of helping me to psychologically accept working
with those guys,
with outside, you know, Akamai Global. Yes. So then COVID happens. Lockdown comes end of March 2020. We hadn't done the Lao field work. It was supposed to have been done in April, so everything was prepared. So lockdown comes and we are not able now to go down to the field. But eventually, you know, an agreement was reached that the various teams need to go to the field. So for us, we are going to Lao, others are going to other places. So arrangements were made, and we went down end of May. But let me backtrack. When lockdown came, I was having a leadership position in my church, and I really felt a burden for the congregation, for the pastors. And so we got to pray. And we actually, I believe, spearheaded having online prayer meetings. We just started praying first as leaders. And then we are like, but as leaders, we are getting encouraged. God is speaking to us, so let us open this opportunity. So we ended up having evening daily evening prayer meetings. Eventually we added morning, and we had people from South Sudan, people from Boston, people from Zambia, different places, just logging in and praying. Now, sometimes God speaks to me through dreams.
Yeah.
So I get a dream about 23rd of April. In that dream, I see how church services would resume, how people would sit in the church. I see myself going for a mission to northern Uganda. By that time, we have not yet agreed on this enterprise Uganda field work. I see myself coming back from that mission, and I had a client, an SME, and then after that SME, I had a financial institution kind of employing me in a high level position. So I wrote down the dream.
Okay.
I shared the bit of church opening and whatever with the church leadership. And indeed, when churches were allowed to resume service, that is the way I saw the sitting.
Yes.
That is how we did it.
Right.
At our church. Now, in that dream, that I went to Sunday, the first Sunday after lockdown. So I was attending a service at about 9, and then after that I would go to the bus park and pick a bus to go to northern Uganda. So eventually now May Enterprise Uganda works out with the authorities, and we are going. And we are setting off on a Sunday. We are supposed to set off at 9. But now in the dream, I moved from church from like about that 9, maybe 10 something. But to get to the bus park, it is like 5:30.
Evening.
Okay, so we were supposed to leave on a Sunday at about 9, but several factors, we ended up leaving at 5:30.
Wow.
So we finished the activity. Now that was now early June. I come back, and the first Sunday when I come back, after, of course, those days services were on TV and whatever.
Yeah.
Then somebody calls me and says, I've been looking for your number. I need business advice. So the SME client had come.
Just like the dream.
Yes. So, and really what he wanted, he needed advice, and it was advice that I asked God, and God gave me what to tell him, and he was so happy. I believe up to now, he's still happy, because it was a point of decision. What do I do? Lockdown, I have invested a lot, so God told me, tell him to stay the course. So he stayed the course, and like after about 10 days, government lifted restrictions in this area of business. So for him, he thinks that I am the most forward-looking business
visionary.
Yes. So now, that goes on. So come July, I always tell people it is good to pray before you sleep.
Right.
So one Thursday evening, I pray, and then now I am really getting ready to sleep.
Yeah.
And then a friend calls me. So I'm thinking, okay, we are in lockdown.
Yeah.
It's night. There must be trouble, but what can I do? Maybe I'll pray with him, then I will check on him in the morning. So he says, no, James, there's a call. Somebody was going to call you tomorrow morning. But I thought that it is better you get to know. Yes. So I'm like, what is it about? So he says, there's a job, and they're interested in you. So either he didn't know much or he didn't want to tell me much.
Yeah.
So I was literally actually swinging. I had already put one leg in the blanket and I was about to put the other. Now I pulled the leg I put in the blanket and just got out and said, okay,
yes,
I need to pray about this. So
right.
I ended up sitting and praying for about 3 hours, just trying to figure out where is this coming from and all that. So next morning I get the call. And I was being asked, we have this position, would you be interested? So I'm like, okay, I need to pray and really get direction from God. Okay, that is fine, but could you share with us your CV? Like, okay, my CV is a public thing. I'm a consultant, so I will share with you the CV. But then I don't yet have a release. So, and this was early in the morning, a few minutes after 8.
Yeah.
So I ended up sharing the CV maybe about 3 p.m. It was there. It was on my computer, but I just didn't have the release. So I shared the CV, and so after my CV was looked at, then the feedback came, oh, your CV looks good and appropriate. Meanwhile, I don't know what the job is. Our HR is going to get in touch with you. So this was Friday, so Saturday morning the HR gets in touch. So I'm like, this is interesting. These people work even on
Saturdays. Yeah.
Yes. So, but then they tell me there's going to be a psychometric assessment on Monday. Now, all my life I have never done a psychometric assessment.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, fine. So Sunday afternoon, I'm like, okay, let me just Google this. My uncle, let me find out what is psychometric assessment, how is it structured. So I go through one and I find that, match this pattern with that pattern. So you need to have proper vision, clear eyesight. You need to think quickly, and it is. So I'm like, this would have been good in my 20s or 30s, yes. Yeah. But anyway, Monday, I'm still praying. I'm not getting any
feedback from
God.
From God.
Yes, nothing stopping me, nothing pushing me. It is just
there.
They are neutral. So I go for the assessment. There are many people. So they tell us, oh, sorry, there's a bit of a delay, but we will soon start. So eventually the person handling the assessment comes and apologizes further and says, we are now ready. The reason we delayed was that we were recalibrating the assessment so that instead of it taking 1 hour, it takes 2 hours. So I'm like, okay, there's some rigging here. So about 1 hour 20 minutes, I have done the assessment, I have rechecked my answers, and there's nothing more I can change. So I tell the guy, I'm done, may I go? So he says, no, kindly just hold on, since you are with other people, so that they are not destabilized. So I wait, the people finish, and we go. And results come back like 2 days after. Oh, you've done very well in the psychometric. Now there's going to be an interview with the board, which was like a week later. So I'm like, this guy is quite fast and serious.
And still you haven't received a release yet?
No, not at all.
Just flat.
Yes. But then the principle there is, don't dishonor God. Don't be shabby. Much as you may not take up this job.
Do your best.
Yes. So at that point I was like, okay, can I have the job description? So I take a look at the job description, and something is like, you don't have to bother with the job description. So I close it. and I continue with my prayers. And so the interview day comes. We again a couple of people, but I was the first. So I go, and it was quite a relaxed conversation. I'm trying to wait for questions I can't answer, but it's like they are basically asking me
what
I know. I can reflect on things I did while I was in the bank, various things I have done as a consultant, things I have done at church, and they are all related to this job. So, end of that very long story is that after maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, we say, okay, we are offering you a job. Yeah.
What is the title of this job?
The position is Assistant Commissioner, Staff Compliance with Uganda Revenue Authority. And so it's really about internal compliance, developing, and implementing and enforcing a culture of integrity, compliance, and ethics within the organization. Yeah.
Remember, you had formed Akamai Global, and you are looking at it, probably doing it for life.
Yes.
So what happens at this moment in time that the job has been offered to you?
I think it was about then that my mind then was open to the dream.
Yeah.
The financial institution. Because
me,
I had thought financial institution means a bank. Because that is what I had my
thoughts about.
And my experience. So now I reflected and said, no, but this actually is a financial institution.
So basically, you had been forewarned in the dream.
Exactly.
And now, I think, in my thinking, is nearly everything that the dream had foretold happened.
Yes.
Starting with the lifting up of the lockdown, to the northern field work, to the SME person.
Yes.
And now, financial institution was the one that is pending.
Yes, although actually the lifting of lockdown was the last. Yes, because this is now July. I get offered the job maybe early August. I start work in September, but the lifting was, I think, about maybe in November. When now they allowed churches to
start
meeting. But this was towards the tail end. So now I see that, okay, this is actually what so if God took the trouble, so to speak, to tell me beforehand, then even if I still have my questions, let me just take it up.
So it's basically like obedience and so on.
Exactly.
Is there any uncertainty with this in terms of your life? Because it's a transition.
Oh yes. Because now remember, Lawrence, this was almost 21 years since I had been
employed
in a formal setting. So I'm like, will I be able to be in office at 8 every day and stick there until 5? Because this other work I've been doing, sometimes the office begins at 1 because you start with a client somewhere, and it was varied. And then I was thinking, would I still be able to write memos and attend meetings and chair them? Yes, but what surprised me, when I sat in the chair, it's like things just started flowing, and then what I found out also was that, this is a new position. I'm the first office holder, but God had prepared me in various ways for this function. So I was really ready to take it up, much as I didn't know that the various things I was going through
were leading towards this.
Yes, yeah.
Good. So, the moral of the story.
Yes.
What can we learn about, if you were to reflect, James, if you were to reflect about what has been happening to you in terms of this specific transition, what can we learn?
A couple of things. One, first of all, transition by its nature has two aspects to it. There is the aspect of time.
Okay.
Yes, that there's probably a starting point and an ending point. So a transition may take a second, may take a minute, may take a day, a month, a year, but often people talk of a transition period. Yes, so for me then I realized that, when I was in the bank, it was a transition period. Akamai was not actually, before Akamai we had ideas, the IT and research. It was a transition period. Akamai transition period. Lockdown transition period. So sometimes the transition may be extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But what can cheer you is that there is a beginning and there is also an end. So if it is uncomfortable, you know that at some point it will come to an end. But also if it is comfortable, you know that the comfort will also will also come to an end. But then the other thing about transition is that it is about change, that something is changing. You know, your status is changing, your condition is changing, your circumstances are changing. So these two go together, the time and the change. Now, however much we may dislike transition, if transition does not happen, or if it is not managed well, then there are two things that could then result. One of two things that could result. One is that you could get stunted.
Nice. You can't grow. You're not growing.
You're not growing. Yes, and later when you want to grow, you just can't grow. You just stay that, so maybe you'd be mentally stunted, you'd be physically stunted, you'd be financially stunted, socially stunted, spiritually stunted. So we need to embrace transition to allow growth to happen. But there's even a worse thing, that if transition is mismanaged or not allowed to go on, that one could die. Yes, so if a baby has taken 9 months in the womb, and then you say, no, I don't want this baby to come out, then the baby and perhaps even the mother could die. So appreciating that then puts us in a situation where it's like, okay, we need to accept transition. In fact, we need to embrace transition. Now, the other thing is that transition then is the stepping stone to purpose. That without transition, you will not reach or attain your purpose. So Akamai was great, and maybe one day I'll get back to it.
It's not dead.
It's not dead.
Buried.
Yes, but there's perhaps purpose that I need to play out as far as what is going on in Uganda Revenue Authority and maybe within government. And there's something that, during those lockdown periods, I think God did give me quite a bit of revelation about Africa and why, at that point people were like, how do we get back to the normal? And in that revelation, it was like, in the case of Africa, we should not desire to get back to the normal, because the normal was unsatisfactory. The normal should have been unacceptable, so you wouldn't want to get back to that normal. You want actually something different, so I kept praying into it. I kept sharing with people. So I was like, maybe God is like, okay, you need to play a part in this new Africa. In fact, the revelation was that what Africa needs is an exodus, not an exodus in terms of a physical movement, but an exodus in terms of a mental shift and also a spiritual shift. Yes, but then the thing with the exodus was that the Israelites moved from a state of being slaves into a state of people with their own property, people working for themselves, and people worshipping a god instead of worshipping an idol, or being ruled over an idol, and living under a system of government which God had ordained. Yes, so me, then I'm like, okay, this transition is to enable me to participate in purpose, and a purpose which is not just individual, but maybe more communal, that I can affect a community. The other thing is that in transition, there can be anxiety.
And uncertainty.
Now, the anxiety could be caused by past bad experience. And then uncertainties, of course, we can't quite know what the future portends. Yes, but then, if we can learn from past mistakes, then it helps us to better handle the transition. If we can do all we can to plan and to execute our plans, it will help us with the transition. And more importantly, if we can befriend God, because He knows the future, then when He says it is okay, you just trust Him and it will be okay. So for me, I think those are things that help me to navigate the transition. And I'm not saying that I'm already out of the woods. It is more like it is an ongoing thing. And I am like, okay, there will be probably another transition
coming up.
Coming up.
So earlier on you said that not to dishonor God, you give your best.
True.
In the moment that you find yourself in.
Yes.
Is that what you're doing at URA?
Oh yes. It's now maybe about 2.5 years. And I really want to thank God that I believe I have contributed things that even if or when I leave, they will still continue. For instance, when I came in, the issue was like, so what is the problem that we need to solve? And so I conducted a survey, called it a comprehensive integrity survey, so that we would pick both the perception but also get to kind of diagnose, like, what is it that we need to deal with. And that was the first survey of that nature ever done.
Wow.
I guess anywhere. Yes.
You instituted this.
I instituted this.
Wow.
Now the revenue authorities in East Africa, we had a meeting actually last week. And so they are also, the other 5 revenue authorities are also going now to implement the same survey.
So that's the Africa you're talking about.
Perhaps. I hadn't even thought about that. Yes. Then from there now we developed a strategy. Yes, an integrity strategy. Because we are like, for me, for instance, fighting corruption is good, but it is a negative thing. So after fighting corruption, then what? So building integrity for me is more positive. Yes, so let us have that positive planted, then you don't have space for the corruption. And where you find now weeds, you remove the weed and plant the positive. So we have
so the focus becomes on a positive.
Yes.
When you talk about we're fighting corruption,
yes,
you don't have space and time for this capacity of integrity.
Very true.
To grow.
Yes. And you might well end up being the thing you hate.
Exactly. You become what you fight.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah. So
they normally say, it's a quote actually, what you resist persists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we have now URA has an integrity strategy, and recently we did a second survey which shows that there's now a shift, a positive shift. It's not at the level where we would want to be, but it is in the direction where we expected, where we wanted the organization to go. Yesterday I met somebody and said, no, your area has changed. I tried to offer money to one of your staff and the staff refused the money.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, I am in this position where I can contribute to a change, because remember, I hated corruption, and maybe that is where I was found out and say, okay, since you hate corruption, now come
and do this
and help us. Yes. So I think I am happy, and whatever we've been able to achieve, I really just give the glory and the credit to God, because I can't say that because I am well qualified or experienced or whatever it is. It's just God's grace here.
My goodness, James, it's been an hour talking to you about transitions.
Yes.
And I really I'm glad that you have been vulnerable enough to come and share with us your story before Akamai itself, and then this transition into URA. There are three things you said about this particular transition. Number one, you did not want to leave Akamai.
True.
Number two, you did not want to work with the government ever.
True.
I've forgotten the third one. But it's a true transition because you were there. The place where you had said you did not want to go, that's where you are, and you are serving God there.
Yes.
So we are grateful. James, I'm so grateful that we can do this, and maybe just the last question, because we've talked about you and business consultancy and so on. Are you open to help people at this moment in time, now that you're having this position at URA? Maybe someone might be listening and they want to say, yeah, but I want to talk to James to help me with my thoughts in terms of business consultancy. Are you available, or that is on hold now?
I'm available, provided the person is willing to do it at odd hours. There's a man that we've been wanting to meet for more than 2 months, but he's very strict in his timing, and I'm telling him, can we do this at night? No, we can't do it at night. Can we do it Saturday evening? He doesn't want so. But if the person is
flexible enough,
is flexible enough, certainly we'll be happy to engage. Yes.
Where do they find you?
LinkedIn is a very good address.
Yes.
They
so
go
just
to look
LinkedIn,
for
James Abola.
James Abola, you'll find me. I'm now not. In fact, I've not been on Facebook now for close to 2 years. Just the dictates of the work. I just find that I think there are certain conversations I need to steer clear of.
Right.
Yes. So LinkedIn is a good contact. You can find me there.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the close of today's episode. We've been talking to James Abola, the Assistant
Commissioner Staff Compliance. Yes.
The Assistant Commissioner Staff Compliance at the Uganda Revenue Authority, a man who used to be, or who still is, an entrepreneur, but he made the transition to go and work with the government, not necessarily for the government, but to work with the government in areas of integrity, and we are grateful for that. So tomorrow we continue with the normal programming, and next week on Wednesday another conversation awaits us. But until then, bye-bye and God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.